Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Park.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of More Money. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and today I'm here with Michele Reynolds. Hey, Michele.
Hi, Cassie.
Hi. As you know, Michele is one of the Year of Growth participants, and so she's coaching and growing and all that fun stuff. And on this week's call, she mentioned that she had done something over the weekend, and she said the phrase, "That was the best $100 I've ever spent." And so I said, let's talk about that in an interview, because I know what it feels like. And it's hugely and so for Michele, it was more being her future self and like doing that and stepping into that. And it really had an impact. But you can intentionally spend $100 and get a lot of your future self, a great experience, and a lot of things. And so I have a story it's not quite $100 that we spent, but it was like $70. And so I just want to open up this conversation and this thing that like, it doesn't have to cost you thousands of dollars when you're trying, because everybody wants to know, like, how do I be my future self? How do I be abundant before that I have the bank account to do that, right? And you do it by being intentionally investing money. So let's jump into it. Michele, how are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you.
Good. All right. So tell us about your weekend and the best $100 you've spent in a while anyway.
Absolutely. So I went to Boise, Idaho to launch a new team, and I flew in. I got a rental car, and I'd already paid for the flight. So like that was long gone. But I got to the rental counter, and he said, "Great, we have your car for you. Would you like an upgrade?" And every time I go to get a rental car lately, I get an upgrade. And I was like, "Is it free?" And he said, "Well, let me check on it." And he said, "We have a red convertible Camaro, brand new. Would you like that?" And I said, "Is it free?" And he said, "Oh, I didn't check on that for you." So he goes to check, and he goes, "With insurance and the upgrade and everything, and that's full insurance, it's $100 more." And I said, "Done." So I got the keys, and right then the swagger started. Like, I didn't even have to see the car. I already knew what it was, and I knew it was hot because I see Camaros all the time going down the road, and I'm always like, I would look hot driving that.
Uh-huh.
And so I got out to the car, and I was like, holy shamoly, this is awesome. And I couldn't figure out how to make the top go down. So I put my bags in it, and I'm like, "Excuse me, can you help me please? I got this really cool car and I don't know how to make it work." And I got out the owner's manual, and I still was like, no clue. Well, you have to put up the back, like you have to hook it up so that the canopy goes down into the majority of the trunk. So you have to have a small suitcase when you're driving a red convertible brand new Camaro.
Oh, good information, right?
I know, good information to know. You want to travel lightly when you're driving that car. And so we got it down, and we started the engine, and I was like, holy moly, just the engine sound alone. I was like, I'm driving this. This is mine for a whole weekend, and it's fully insured. I can do what I want with it. So I got my sunglasses out, put the top down, and my first thought was like, I think I need sunscreen. But I had, for whatever reason, threw sunscreen in my bag. So I just pulled over, and I put sunscreen on, and still going about my cool self. And like, people were like, I'd be going by, and people would be like looking at me, and I'd be like, hi, like I loved it. And I definitely drove fast. There's no question. I had to see what it could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an amazing car. But the greatest part of the weekend, I mean, I loved it for me, and I felt like a superstar in it. But everyone that was there at the event was like, "We want to ride in the car." And I'm like, yeah. So I was the person that got to take everyone for rides in my brand new sports car.
That's awesome.
It was great. The kids loved it. The adults loved it. We talked and stopped to talk to strangers. We met people because of it.
Yes.
It was just, and it was who I was being in the car that, I mean, the car's cool, but it was like the energy of who I was being, which is my future self, has a sports car.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, like, who were you being? Like, who were you once you got the keys and you started driving that car and you showed up to places and you saw people?
Yeah. Well, I was definitely wealthy and I definitely had time and money freedom. In fact, I had nowhere to be. And I didn't have anywhere to be the first day.
Yeah.
Like, I had a day and a half where I could go be and do anything I wanted. And so I was like, well, what do people in this town do? You know, and people are like, what do you do? Right? Like, who are you? And I was like, don't you know? I was like, so I was free was the first word. I was wealthy, which doesn't mean necessarily like a certain number in the bank. It's like I had everything covered. Like, it was taken care of, and I was free financially to do what I wanted. If I wanted to go shopping or go out to eat or play, or I just could do what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, and you said it, like, it doesn't matter the number in your bank account, but it's like you felt abundant in that car, right?
Yes.
So that's how you be. You know, I get this question I saw it today in something, you know, how do you like act as if you have money when you don't, right? And it's not that you don't have money, like you have money, and like you said, everything is taken care of, and this extra amazing, awesome thing, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I took pictures in the car with everyone else. Like, I'm the owner of the car. I had the keys.
Right.
And
you
it was
like
mine.
that, right?
Yeah.
Didn't
And
go
so
around saying like this is a rental. Oh, but it's not mine.
No.
Oh, right. None of that. Right.
It was mine for the weekend.
Yeah. And you owned that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a difference of, this is a rental car, to be careful with it. Like, I was like, it's insured. This is my baby.
Yeah.
You know, but everyone was like, can we take pictures with you and the car? And I'm like, absolutely. I mean, I had young boys, again, the young boy thing, like walking by at this place we were at the meeting at the library, and these young boys were walking by and they're like, oh, cool car. I'm like, you want a picture? And they're like, yes. So I took pictures with these young boys, right? Like middle school age boys, teenage boys. And they were like, that's the coolest car ever. And I was like, thank you. Like, I have this thing when I'm being my future self, kids love me. Young teenage kids just are drawn to me.
Yes.
Yeah. And their parents, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so when I took pictures with people, I wasn't like, this is my rental car. I was like, this is my car attitude. And the other people were like, like, look at her car, you know? And I was like, you know, just like, this is my car, you know, no big deal.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And that's not like, that's just a choice and a decision and like choosing to act a certain way, right? Because it's not like, who cares if it's a rental car? Like, nobody needs, like, that's not even like information. Like, we don't go around telling people on a daily, like, oh, this is my car. Like, I own it. It's not a rental. So why would we tell somebody, well, it's a rental, it's not mine, right?
Right. So I pulled into the Yamaha dealership because I had extra time, and I drove by this Yamaha dealership, and I'm like, yes, my future self would go into a Yamaha dealership. So I pulled in my hot car, and all these salesmen were like, which was pretty fun. And they're like, are you shopping today? I'm like, I am. And, you know, instead of, no, I'm looking, I'm like, I am. You know, so they were like at my beck and call, which was awesome. And I found one I loved, and I said, so I live in Colorado. If I bought this today, could you deliver it to the Colorado store? Like, are you affiliated with that Yamaha store? Like, I didn't say, you know, I played the part. I just was who I was. And he said, no, unfortunately not. You would have to have someone here drive it back there. And I said, well, that won't be happening today because I'm going back to Colorado in just a few days. And he goes, why are you in town? And I said, oh, I've, you know, partnered with the founder of Fiji Water. He's my business partner. And he's like, that's so cool. Can I have your business card? Yes, you can.
Right. When you are being your future self, like the things that both support you getting to your future self and being your future self show up.
Yeah. I'm like, it came to me, all of it.
Yeah. And how much more could you be your future self because you had a red Camaro instead of like, I don't know, the basic car?
Oh my gosh. Like 5,000 times more. Like, if I just got this economy little piece of crap, can maybe fit one suitcase in the back seat car, I'd have been like, God, I got to work harder.
I mean, how would you have driven around town? Like, you probably wouldn't have gone to the Yamaha dealership, right?
No way. I wouldn't have. And I wouldn't have had the posture, I would say the swagger that I had. I mean, I just literally, I felt like $1 million all weekend.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Like,
and everything was easy. Everything was easy. The waitresses were all over, and they didn't see the car in the parking lot. They didn't know what I walked into the restaurant driving. But again, it's the presence that you carry with you.
Mm-hmm.
And at the airport, I like a huge long line of people. I had TSA pre-check, and I went right through. And I was like, didn't have to take my shoes off, didn't have to take my computer out of the bag. I was like, yes. So everything was just easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is easy. And we often think it's such a big investment to get experiences like that. And it's really not, right? Because most people, the way that most people do it is they would go to whatever site they're using and they'd look at rental cars and they'd be like, okay, 230, I'm totally making up the numbers. I don't know what Michelle's numbers are. Oh, 234 is the cheapest, right? I'm just going to pick that one, right?
Right.
But
that's what I did.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
When I reserved the car, that's what I did.
That's what you did, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we don't look at we're like, oh, because we see like the total. So like if it would have said 334, we're like, oh, that's 334. That's like $100 a day. That's this, that's that, right? You come up with all these stories. When if we really looked at, oh yeah, but how much more is it? It's really $100 investment in your future self. Right? Yeah, which makes such a difference.
And I met so many people that were interested in my business that weekend, like more than I have ever met. I think it was 13 total.
Wow.
And again, it was who I was being. And I had to get their, samples out of my trunk of my red convertible Camaro.
Right?
They were like, a couple of them were like, that's your car? I'm like, yes, it is.
Yes, which is true. Like it was your car for the weekend, right?
I had ownership of it. It was mine.
Yeah. And I think that's important because we can go get experiences without like it being thousands of dollars, right? If a red sports car is in your future, like you don't even have to be on a business trip. You can just go get one for the weekend, right?
Yep. And that's what my daughter said. She said, we are getting one when you come home. And she said, I don't care if it's for a day, an hour, but we are getting one. And I said, absolutely.
Yes, right? Because it makes it, because you can't unknow that experience. Right? So anytime you want to tap into that part of your future self, that swagger, that whatever, what do you have to do?
Well, I'm going to answer that in a really fun way. So when I got in my car, which is a Honda Accord Sport, I drove it like I was driving that Camaro, like this, and I'd never felt that way in my car. So I was like, my car's actually pretty cool, and it drives very similar to the Camaro. And I was like, it's actually a great car. And I every time I get in it and I drive somewhere, I put on my sunglasses, I roll down the windows, and I feel like I'm in that Camaro again because it's the remembering of how it was.
Yes. And so you invested, and I'm going to say this a lot of times about this $100 because it's significant. So you invested $100 so you knew what the experience felt like. And now you can recreate it on a daily basis and be in that experience.
Multiple times a day.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're in the car a lot.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So, and I can think of another, I don't know what your example was. You said you had an example, but I can think of another example that you and I had that was right around that same amount.
Absolutely. Share it.
So for Christmas, I work with Cassie. I'm her virtual assistant. We flew to Vegas, and mine was free because I was her buddy.
Yep.
And we went to a day spa, and we spent all day there, and it was pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
And we had lunch in our bathrobes, and it was the most awesome day. And so one of the things I loved about that spa, and I'll talk about how I tap into that, is they had a hot water room or like a hot water section. And then they had a freezing cold Arctic water session. And when we were in that one, I was like,
Yeah, it's cold. It's called the igloo room.
Yes. But it felt good, but it was shocking to the body. And I had previously, probably 15 years ago, read about this health guru that recommended hot and cold, and it's really, really good for your organs. And now that I'm in a health business, every time I take a shower in my brand new house, which is my dream home right now, in my shower, it's like a spa. It very much is like that spa we went to. I do in the morning, every morning I do really hot. And then guess what I do before I get out?
Really cold.
Really cold. Every single day. And it reminds me of that experience.
I love it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience, so I will say, adding it up real quick without, like remembering, was probably about $300 total for us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's like $150 a person.
Yeah.
And that's totally when we're willing to look at things, right? Like willing to be open. We're willing to say, like, we're willing to. So the cool thing about that is, I don't know if this was clear. I know because I was there, but like we flew out in the morning, we went to the spot and we flew back that night, right? You were home to pick Danelle up from
It was amazing.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we let go, because often again, I want to say where most people will go. Most people will like, if I'm going to book a flight to Vegas, if I'm going to pay $100 for a flight to Vegas, I want to stay. And that means, I have to get this money for hotel. I have to do this. I have to do that. I would argue that's one of the best Vegas experiences I ever had.
Me too. And I've been to Vegas a lot.
Me too. Right. And they've all been like fun and significant. And I like staying there, but I also loved that we could just go visit.
Yeah. And that I'm like, it's all trickling together. That reminds me of another experience in my last company, network marketing company. They had an event and I literally spent $100. I think it was $97. And I flew in for an event. I didn't have any suitcases. I literally went to the event and I flew out that night. And people were like, well, you're quite the jet setter. Is it, because you couldn't afford a hotel room, which was the automatic question that I got. And I said, actually, no, I just have other places to be. And feels good to me to fly in and be present and then fly back to where I need to be. Right. Because that's what I would do in the future is I would get on my jet with my pilot. We should talk about the pilot.
Yes.
And I would literally be where I needed to be when I needed to be there.
Yes. Absolutely. I love it. We should talk about your pilot, but that is it. It's just switching the frame of mind, right? So my $100 experience, and if you've listened to me, you might have heard this before. It was less than $100 a person, but it was years ago in LA. I'd flown there for a conference. I was there for 3 days. And my friend says, before we start going out there, she said, hey, did you know that we're going to the Pacific coast? And I said, yeah, I did. It's California. Like, I know where we're going. She said, I've only been to the Atlantic. I really want to go to the Pacific. I said, okay, cool. We can make that happen. Well, this conference was literally from 9 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night for like 4 days straight. And now I would be like, I just take the afternoon off. But then I was like, nope, we're going the whole thing. Right. And so we got up, we waited. We just tried to figure this out all week. We were like working on it. And anyway, the last night we said, we are going to the beach tomorrow because we are not having flown all the way to California and not go to the beach. And so we were talking to the hotel attendant and we said, well, can we get a cab? Like, what time do we have to get the cab? She goes, if you're going to the beach, it's going to be less expensive to just have us set you up a car. And we're like, okay, fine. Right. Yeah. And it was
darn.
I know it was like $140, which is crazy because we ended up at the beach for 20 or 30 minutes. But we said, we're going, like, it's important enough. We're already here. We're going to the beach and been to the Pacific Ocean before. And so in the morning, we didn't know this, but this black town car rolls up and the driver gets out and he opens the door for us and he drives us to the beach and we spend 30 minutes. We go our separate ways. We do a little yoga. We do all the things we want to do at the beach and really soak in that experience and then come back and go to the conference. And so that was like the best almost $100 ever spent because that whole experience, I then knew what it was like to be picked up in a town car. I knew what it was like to be abundant enough that you would have someone drive you to the beach just for a half an hour, right? You don't have to make up all these stories about, I'm going to go to the beach. I have to be there all day and I have to pack all this stuff and I have to make it worth it. All those stories that don't exist when you're abundant.
No justifying.
No justifying, right? Which is we talk about in writing your new money story all the time. Like,
yep.
Yeah. So tell us your other $100.
I thought of another one too.
Yeah.
Like I have so many examples of this.
I love it.
So let's talk about the pilot first. So one of the
Yeah.
people that I met in Boise when I got on the plane, and I usually pay for them to just check me in so that I don't forget but this time I didn't for whatever reason. And so
Yeah.
I had like, I forgot to check in. It was way after the, 12 hours or 24 hours or whatever it is, whatever number it is. And so I checked in and I was like B50 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever, there'll be a perfect spot. It's just me. And so I walk in and right side of the plane, second row, middle seat is open. And there's a pilot sitting on one side and there's a young girl on the other. And I said, is anyone sitting there? And she kind of looked grumpy, to be honest, because pilots sometimes look grumpy in their uniforms,
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, she just looked grumpy and she goes, nope, that's for you. And instead of having 2 bags, I had 3 bags. So I'm the person that went shopping and had the extra bag. So I'm like, got extra crab. So I'm like trying to, get over this woman and stuff my stuff under. And this other lady comes in. She goes, could I put your bag up here for you? And I go, that would be amazing. I need enough moms. I need more moms than I have on this trip. And she said, I'll be your mom. I'll just be right back here. And I was like, perfect.
Awesome.
So she puts my bag right above me. And this pilot's like, you're a mess, aren't you? And I'm like, not really. I just, went shopping. And so we started laughing right away, just kind of being funny. And so I thought, I could sit here and I could, go to sleep, or I could be on my phone, or I could do whatever, but I might just want to talk to her. So I said, so I don't know if people talk to you when you fly or not, or they're just scared of you because you're a pilot. I said, but why did you want to become a pilot? And so I just started asking her questions, and we talked the entire time. We talked and we laughed, and we were taking selfies. Like, the people around us were probably like, you girls need to stop. And I texted her afterwards and I told her, one of my dreams is actually one of my goals that I'm working towards is to have a private jet that I have at my disposal anytime I want, so that I can, have access to a pilot. We all just meet there. And I said, I don't know if I own the plane or I just rent the plane or it's someone else's plane. I said, I don't know, but I just have complete access to it. And I said, but I do have a designated pilot. And I said, do you ever fly privately? And she said, well, most pilots, stick commercial and they upgrade. And then when they retire, they do, fly jets. And I said, well, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to hire someone that, will be my pilot. Like, you're not just going to be, once in a while, like, I'm flying all over the world type thing. And she said, call me. I'm totally interested. And I said, perfect. And I love this girl. We had a ball, and I said, you're hired. Now let me get the plane.
Yeah. Right.
And she was like, so when she texted me afterwards and she said, you have to be the coolest passenger I've ever met. And I was like, I'm the passenger.
Right.
Versus the person,
Yeah.
And so the next day she invited me to a Rockies game and, just to hang out. And we've texted every day since then.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So she became a new friend. And this is the great part, is she lives in Denver, but she works in Boise. So I'm building a business in Boise. So it couldn't be any more perfect to have a new best friend.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's that one.
Cool.
Another one I can think of was someone else's $100, but I got to experience it and they got to experience it.
Awesome.
So when I opened a team in Anaheim, see, I'm just traveling all over the place here.
Love it.
I was in the hotel and we worked a trade show all day, and I was tired and I didn't know what I was going to do that night, and everyone else had plans. And I still don't know how this person got my room number, but I got a knock on my door and I got champagne. It was called Michele with 2 L's, and it had chocolate covered strawberries and then a note. And I was doing a Facebook Live when they knocked on my door. So this whole scenario of them delivering it, me opening it, me reading the note, me like, oh my goodness, tasting the strawberries, drinking the champagne, was all on Facebook Live. And the people who sent it to me were watching.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, and they spent less than $100. And I was like, that, if ever I get the chance to do that for someone else as like an appreciation, well worth it.
Definitely. I love that. It's so worth it. You know what? Another $100. This is for a client one time. Her plane got delayed. She was coming in for a workshop, got delayed. And, but her husband was like on the other end, like trying to work it out because he knew she needed to be in Denver, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she flew in. I pushed the workshop back for her, and I said, and when you get off the plane, I don't want you to worry. There's a car waiting. Go outside. This is who's going to pick you up, and he's going to bring you right to the front door, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's like no stress, and it was $100 from the airport to there, but like that experience is something that doesn't go away. It's always in your memory. It's always there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do you have something else you want to share?
You want a $20 example?
Sure.
So on my right hand, I have this ring that I wear, and I'm always fiddling with it. And it's a beautiful ring, and it's $20. It's so not real. But I wear it because it makes me feel like I would in my future I will have real diamonds that are this size. And every once in a while, I'll just wear it all day on this hand. And
you just switched it to a right hand because you guys are listening.
Yeah, because it's backwards. So now it's on my left hand, but it's the video is different. So once in a while, I'll just switch my rings, and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm engaged today,"
right.
and it's kind of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, it's the pretending, act as if. And I will tell you, I have a different swagger when I'm engaged than when I'm not.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So true. That's one of my tips I always give people, who want to be in a relationship is like, okay, well, how'd you walk down the street differently if you had the guy on your arm, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I want to give a couple tips for investing $100 in your future self. So tip number one is that you have to do it. You have to see it as an investment. You have to do it consciously and be willing to let that go. So whether you're used to spending $100 or that's like the hardest thing ever to part with, once you make the decision to make that investment, you got to be all in, because the back and forth doesn't allow you to fully be your future self, right? So it's something you just let go of. It's like that if, one time you want to get the $100 ride from the airport, like go for it. So you have that experience, and you just have to be willing to let it go. Number two, like do something that feels really fun, right? So often we think we got to go big, but you and I were talking about, we didn't have as much time to get into it, but you could spend $100 and come to Denver and have an amazing day if you're just intentionally, you could start with lunch, and then you could walk around downtown, and then you could, go for a pedicab ride, and then you could have champagne, and then you could go somewhere for dessert, and all of that would be $100, but invested consciously versus just, like choosing, okay, I'm going to do this as my future self, gives you an amazing experience. And I think the other tip is to remember that you always get to keep the experience. So you will, like you said, you can roll down the windows and you can know, and you can feel the same as in that red convertible in your car. And so you're investing in getting to know that experience, because the more you can experience that now, the quicker and easier the actual red Camaro every day shows up in your life, right?
Yep. And I didn't really think about it till afterwards.
Yeah.
That's what my future self would have done. And I was like, oh yeah, she definitely would have done that. But it's now it's happening where I'm like, would I do this? I think that's the question I usually ask subliminally now is, would I do this? Like talking about myself in the future, would I do this? And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no.
Yeah. And it's not based on the price tag probably as much. It's based on what your future self would do, because we all have yes and no's, and there are still no's in our future self.
It's true.
So I'm going to challenge all of our listeners, go out there and invest $100 in being your future self. And
let us know what you do.
Yeah. Share your story.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michele, for joining me today and for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Remind everybody where they can connect with you if they want more information about your business and what you do.
Absolutely. So my website is ketomichele.com. And what I do, I'm a mompreneur, and I help people get healthy and wealthy if they so choose.
Love it. So check out Michele. Make sure to tune in for our next episode. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you for joining us on The More Money Show. To learn how to attract more money into your life, go to your favorite book retailer and order Cassie's book, Manifest $10,000.